Hello Internet, today we're going to be taking a look at a game called Yet Another Zombie Survivors, which is a recently released game that I quite enjoyed. Now this is a swarm survival game in the style of Vampire Survivors, or 20 Minutes Till Dawn, that is, you guessed it, about the zombie apocalypse. This game is from a dev called Awesome Games Studio, and they've released a handful of games over the last few years. Now I actually recognize them because they released a game called iZombie like 10 years ago, and it was a very simple zombie puzzle game, but it was very cheap and short, and I rather enjoyed it. I know it's very simple and very old, but I liked it. But most of you will probably know them from another game called Fury Unleashed. This was a comic book roguelike that got a pretty good traction a few years ago. Well, anyway, Yet Another Zombie Survivors released on July 13th, 2023 in early access and has grown quite popular. It currently has thousands of reviews, and it comes in with a very positive rating as of the time of this recording. In this video, we'll talk about where it succeeds and where it fails, and hopefully inform you on whether or not the game is worth your time. Now, my first impressions of the game, based on the Steam trailer and screenshots, is that there's an awful lot happening on the screen. And after having played it for something like 15 hours, yeah, this game has more chaos than your average American political debate, especially on higher difficulty modes towards the end of the run. But anyway, let's get into the game here. Now, upon starting our first run, we have 3 characters that are available to us, each of which fits a different archetype. SWAT is an all-around sort of military guy using a pistol and SMG with abilities like throwing grenades or calling in a helicopter strafe attack. People really love their military characters in zombie stuff for some reason. It's not my favorite thing in the world. The character known as Tank was my favorite in the early game, using shotguns, getting a saw blade orbital, and deploying a minefield around him. And then our third character here at the start is the Engineer, who focuses on electrical abilities. They have a taser and a Tesla gun, they can deploy electrical turrets, and can go full-on Pikachu to release a shocking AoE. Now, the character that you choose at the start of the run is your leader, and this is important because if you defeat 5,000 enemies while that character is your leader, you will unlock their next set of weapon upgrades. However, that doesn't mean you're actually stuck with just this character in battle, and indeed, by the end of the game, you're often going to have a team of 3. Now, these 3 characters are the 3 that are available when you first boot up the game, with 3 more of them unlockable as you play, although obviously this is all subject to change because it's in early access. Now, getting into my first run here, let's explain the UI. I like people to know what they're actually looking at as they watch the video. So up top here, we've got a red bar for HP and a yellow bar for experience. The number on the left is our current level, and the kill count is listed below that. Dead center below these bars is the timer. A standard game lasts for 20 minutes. On the left, we have a stack of icons that represent our character's current abilities, weapons at the top and abilities further down, and they are color-coded to show which character they belong to. On the right, we've got a money counter next to the number of upgrade points that we've unlocked in this run, and we gather money, and when we pass the threshold that's displayed here, we get another upgrade point, which we then use for meta progression between each run. Below that, item pickups will be displayed on that right-hand side. And then in the center here, we've got our character or squad, and around them is usually the unrelenting chaos of the zombie apocalypse. Now, this game is clearly designed to be played in 20 to 30 minute bursts, and the goal here is really simple. It's like me at a party. The goal really is just to survive for like 20 minutes. There is also an endless mode and a harder difficulty in case you find the base game too easy, which it definitely is. After 20 minutes, the sun will rise and the horde will fall away, and you have succeeded. If you're playing on endless mode, the main difficulty seems to come from an increase in enemy speed. It doesn't actually get challenging per se. The zombies just get faster and faster until they reach like Sonic the Hedgehog levels, and you're finally overwhelmed. For me, this was like 28 to 32 minutes, usually is kind of when they got too fast for me to handle. Every few minutes, the horde around you will intensify, with the various zombies becoming faster or having more HP, or some bosses will spawn, things like that. Your only hope for survival is to level up your squad and find items, and each enemy you defeat will drop an experience gem that, when you collect it, will add to the bar at the top of your screen. When you finally level, you are then presented 3 random possible upgrades based on which survivors you you have on your team. However, leveling up is not just based on experience, there are also sometimes survivors marked on the screen with a green arrow. When you rescue them, you are allowed to add a member to your team if you have less than 3 currently, and also provide you with a free level up and some cash. So for a leveling example, if you have only the character called SWAT, then you will only receive his upgrades as possible options when you level up. If you have both SWAT and Tank, you will receive 3 random cards drawn from both of their possible upgrades. Since you also get to control when or if you take an additional character, this does add a small element of strategy. You can also re-roll if you're unhappy with your options. The number of times you can re-roll is based on your progress in the meta upgrade tree and what items you take. Once you learn the game though, it's pretty easy to get a feel for what the best choices are, and you can max out all of the important upgrades by the end of the run. Now that's pretty much the gameplay loop. You start off fighting a few enemies and you level your lone survivor. Now as you progress, you will occasionally save additional people, potentially expanding your team of survivors. Gold chests can also be found periodically, which allow you to choose an item. Everybody loves a loot box, am I right? Now these items do a wide variety of things, and once again they are randomly chosen from what is available, and you do unlock new ones as you play and obtain achievements. As you proceed through your run, it will become more difficult, and when you either die or you succeed in your run, you're provided an overview of your playthrough and anything else that you might have unlocked. You're also rewarded with upgrade points, which you may assign to skills in the meta progression tree. These upgrade things like rate of fire, health points, regen, experience rates, armor, and so on, and with your new upgrades, you're then free to dive back into a new run. So now let's talk about the appearance and mechanics of this game. The game looks pretty great in my opinion. It looks a lot nicer than most Vampire Survivor type games, which are usually pixel art or really low resolution 2D sprites. And some of this video may appear blurry because this is like a bitrate heavy game, but that's like a YouTube and video issue. That is not a problem with the game, just for the record. Now the game looks nice in my opinion, and the models for the survivors do look unique enough. I think SWAT and Tank look pretty similar, but the rest of the characters all look pretty unique. And the horde you face is also made up of a variety of zombie models. They do not all look the same, which in my opinion is a good choice. Weapon and ability effects are also different from character to character, which makes them feel a lot more unique. Now as for frame rate, the game does run very well considering how many enemies are on screen at any given time. I did notice some visual lag starting around 18 minutes when the game had really intensified its efforts to kill me. Now there was also some small visual lag when I had stacked up multiple explosive abilities on top of each other. So if you've got a grenade, a minefield, an explosive arrow, and a rocket launcher going off at the same time, sometimes I would see visual hitches, but I just don't really fault the game for this minor offense. There is often a little visual lag when I blow things up in real life, so it doesn't seem unacceptable to me. Now moving on to the gameplay itself is extremely chaotic. With your characters firing in all directions to stave off the horde, there's often a lot of bullets flying around the screen. And since this is a swarm survival game, you don't actually have to aim your character's bullets, you just instead focus on movement, dodging through pockets in the horde and just trying to avoid danger. By default, aiming is automatic, but you can manually aim if you're so interested by pressing the middle mouse button in case you want more control over where your attack is directed. Now moving on, the bosses in the game are not exceptional, but they are good enough, offering mechanics that you would expect, like the melee only character that you just have to back away from, the one that charges periodically, or a ring of mummies that slowly encircle the player and force you to fight your way out before time runs out. These are pretty expected mechanics for a swarm survival game. The circling enemies that slowly constrict around you is a very common mechanic in the genre, and the mechanics of the game itself are exactly what you expect them to be. It's what I've described, and you play over and over to unlock meta upgrades and new items that ideally increase your desire to play even more. However, unfortunately, very few of the game's upgrades are actually appealing. Unlocking new items through achievements, for example, many items in the game are not actually good, so you don't want to use them anyway. Unlocking the next stage of upgrades for your characters is good, but given the amount of enemies required to be defeated, and the fact that you can only level them one at a time when they are your leader, this is an unpleasant grind. And on that unfortunate note, let's talk about the shortcomings of the abilities and items in this game. So everything I just said is made even worse by the fact that some abilities in this game are objectively bad. It is much better to take weapon upgrades over ability upgrades in almost every circumstance, and let's use the engineer here as an example. Upgrading the engineer's weapon can lead to like over 1 million damage in a single run. Weapons in this game are extremely powerful, but every single ability that is activated just randomly with a cooldown feels very underpowered. This is made significantly worse by them having absurdly long cooldowns. Even with upgrades, they are all significantly worse than weapon upgrades in terms of offense. Because of this poor design, you quickly learn that forcing weapon upgrades is the way to go, and indeed, once you do this, you're going to win basically every run that you try. You will always take the same upgrades, you will always take the same-ish items, and play the game the exact same way. And since you have to grind for many hours to unlock all upgrades for every character, this means you're doing the exact same thing again and again and again, and it's not what I would call fun. The character's general vibes and abilities are different enough to add at least some replayability, but it's definitely not enough to hold my interest. Unlocking the 3 other characters through gameplay at least gave me something interesting to work towards as I continued playing it for this review. And for the record, the medic character is the main outlier in everything that I just discussed, as their weapon upgrades seemed pretty terrible. Like the basic upgrade is a damage over time, and since you mostly just erase enemies from existence instantly with your other characters, this means her damage output is horrendous compared to the other characters. However, on the other hand, her main beneficial ability gives you health regen, which is one of the most valuable passive abilities in my opinion. Now look, I appreciate the effort that you have put into having the player unlock new characters, but it's really the only good unlockable in the game. The meta upgrade tree is extremely basic. It's very easy to quickly unlock these upgrades, and many of them are very low value and not worth the time. Do I really need a few extra hit points? I really don't. Or even the upgrades that are actually good, the game is so easy that you don't actually need any of this progress to succeed regularly. There's also a stat in the game, by the way, called happiness, which is not explained anywhere, so even though you can add points to upgrade it, you have no idea what it even does. Bro, I'm a millennial. I'm depressed in real life. I'm not even in a zombie apocalypse. Why should I care if my survivors are happy? But anyway, let's talk now about development. Now the game is currently in early access, and currently a lot of things in the game are displayed as coming soon, which implies there will be more content in the future. Now I think in general there is a lack of content at the moment, but I also don't really hate you for this. There's definitely enough here to play for a little while, and since it released about 2.5 months ago, there have been multiple updates. Some of them were hotfixes and some of them were content updates as well, and additionally they have released like devlog style updates on Steam talking about their plans, the feedback from the community, and how they plan to address issues. Now this is pretty refreshing for an indie game. I have seen a lot of games that get these sort of updates maybe once a year, if even that. So to me it seems like they have a genuine interest in improving their game, and if you're watching this like a year from now, I would guess the experience is a lot different from what I have depicted in this video. So overall, I'm pretty optimistic that this game will continue expanding and being refined in the future. I'm hopeful that they will address the issues with abilities being very weak compared to weapons. I expect there will be new characters and new levels added in the future, and based on the way the developers talk about this game, I genuinely believe they are making a good faith effort at improving things. And so finally, there's the question, do I recommend this game? Well, it's currently $9.99 in US dollars on Steam, and it seems like a genuine attempt at making something good. So yeah, I do think it's worth that price, even if it is a lot of grinding and the game overall is entirely too easy. The hardest thing about it is the desert level, which enemies sort of blend in with the background and are easy to miss, which is not actually challenging, it's just sort of frustrating. So if you're looking for like a challenge, then maybe this game wouldn't be worth it to you, but if you're looking for a chaotic zombie related distraction to play for 20 minutes while like in between work or whatever, then yeah, absolutely I recommend this game. Now I enjoyed it despite my issues with game balance and kind of the tedium of the grind, but yeah, I would recommend this. And if you're seeing this video in 6 months or a year, well, it could be even better now. With that, however, I think this video draws to a close. Everyone, thank you for watching. Hopefully hopefully you enjoyed the episode. If you liked it, of course, you can hit the thumbs up or subscribe if you want to see more zombie review content in the future. I will be back, of course, hopefully to continue my quest for good indie zombie games. So everyone, thanks for being here, and I'll see you next time.